So, here, what do we have here? What do we have here? This is the branded Azamina top 8 Rochester regional deck list. I have a ton of questions I already asked them, but as you guys see right here, it's a very spicy list. It's a 45 card list that runs the Azamina engine on top of the branded cards to facilitate card advantage on top of Omni Negate. It's a lot of Tenpai. There was a lot of Ryzeal and Malice at that regional, so they were just ducking everything between the best of last meta and the best of the new meta, and still managed to go X1 after Swiss, which was very impressive. So in the main deck, we obviously have the Fallen of Albaz engine, so we can go over that first of all. One Shrouded Dragon and three Aluber, three... Here, let me get the Albazes all together, because... three Fallen of Albaz, one Gimmick Puppet, one Adlib, one Spring Ends Kit, one Cartesia, one Quem, one Tri-Brigade Mercurier, and one Despian Tragedy. Now, this is a thinner engine than you might actually, be accustomed to with Branded. I'd say overall, when this comes to a 45 card list, on top of adding an engine like Azamina, to keep the consistency, to see that branded fusion, to open your droplet, I think that having the concessions that Austin made, I think makes a lot of sense. The one Cartesia is definitely an interesting take. I've seen this happen a lot in the OCG, so I can definitely, it finally happened over here where it's like, yeah, Cartesia is a great card, but you, at the end of the day, if you're only running one Grand Guignol, how many times do you have to resolve Cartesia? Because Branded has so many different ways to establish a board that your opponent cannot play through that doesn't always go through Cartesia. So having that one is an understandable just way to make your going second better, but while also keeping at least the flow of the deck. And then also conversely, one Quem. I mean, we see one Grand Guignol in the extra deck, so I mean, it's not really too much there, and I feel like Austin didn't mention anything on top of these cards really being an issue at these ratios, so I think those were fine. I do want to mention Adlib and Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. So, Gimmick Puppet, like I mentioned, I feel like is not going to... Austin said that they would basically cut it for Ido, or they would end up just cutting it entirely for more like engine, because a lot of the time into this new format, you don't actually need to lock your opponent to win, because like Ryzeal and Malice, their ceilings are a lot less, but they can be there, right? So thanks, Leonardo, for subscribing. I appreciate it. And Adlib, Austin said was amazing. I'll go into the questions where we'll actually have more in depth right there about it, but yeah, no, I thought I had something around here, but I guess we'll just do it. And then the one Sarnier, one Lubellion. The Bestial plays aren't as important in the Diabellstar line, and then of course one Mercurier, one Tragedy with no Foolish Burial. So I feel like that was understandable. And I mean, because you can still run Tragedy without Foolish. We've done this plenty of times. It's great for chain blocking, and you're running Forbidden Droplet, so it's great with that card. Also, for the non-branded cards, besides just the bricks, you have the one Diabellstar, because you are running the Wanted engine, which we can just get into right now. So, plus the Azamina stuff, which this engine has not been hit post-ban list, because we don't run OSS, obviously. We have no reason to go into a Snake Eye Ash and branded, thank God. So, I think that also, I do want to go over the Shrouded Dragon, because I did specifically ask them about the Shrouded Dragon. They said I felt like that one Shrouded Dragon was enough, honestly. I always had access to it when I needed it. So, yeah, the Shrouded Dragon at the end of the day, it's great at 3, and someone commented on a recent video saying like, oh, why did we never ever run less than 3 Shrouded? And I think a lot of the time, a lot of decks, branded decks, were like 40 to 45 cards back in the day. So, like, you didn't necessarily need to run 3 Shrouded at those ratios, so you don't, like, always draw Shrouded off a Shrouded, or, see double Shrouded. and guys, leave me some questions for the deck profile down in the chat that I will answer once I'm done through with the main deck and going into the extra deck. So yeah, no, we do have the 1 Diabell Star plus the 3 wanted Seeker of Sinful. Here, let me put this over a little bit. 3 wanted Seeker of Sinful Spoils, and then 1 Deception of the Sinful Spoils, and then 1 Hallowed Azamina. So this is a very tight engine where that you are running a essentially 6-card main deck engine that facilitates a body of free draw off of the wanted, and because and wanted also pays for itself, right? So like it's a +1 plus you get Diabell Star. Diabell Star, obviously you have to send a card, but you can send a card from on field on or in your hand. So a lot of the time you can pitch Retribution or Branded Sword or something like that. So, or even Despian Tragedy. So you have good bricks to send to the graveyard, or Gimmick Puppet or Adlib. Let's just say DD Vice King, Requiem, or Ido, you know, post-ban list, like Austin said they would be running maybe an Ido, but I think that a lot of people have been kind of going back and forth if they even want to start like locking, which is understandable. I think it's going to be really meta dependent on that and your choices. And then the 1 Deception, I feel like that I talked to them about this too at the regional specifically, and they felt like this was all you really needed. This was like the tightest engine, then the 1 Diabell Star was all you needed too. I've heard from like you could also not even run the Diabell Star. You could also run like a few Deceptions and like a wanted and like I don't even know, like you could like completely skip out on the Diabell Star because Diabell Star ends up being kind of a big choke point if you open it, but that's why it's a one of. And also it's just not a bad card in general to like get rid of some bricks, so I just like I don't hate it honestly as a one of to make wanted a better card. So because I think wanted is just a custom card and it helps with advantage, and giving you more card advantage is always a great thing in branded. It's basically another draw, right? So, and then the 1 Hallowed Azamina gets you cycled into either Azamina Illa Sylvia or Azamina Soul Erection. Oh my god, okay, don't clip me out of context, GZ1K, but Azamina Soul, this one basically Arishthon, yeah, Arishthon. Azamina Soul. We'll just call it Azamina Soul. Basically, this card on fusion summon, target 1 card on field, send it to the graveyard. So it doesn't even destroy, but it's a board breaker. So, and also it's an illusion plus fiend monster, which is going to be important because we see Super Poly in the side deck, and no Mud Dragon or Garura. So you guys might be curious about that, but there's a specific reason why, and we'll talk about in the interview portion of the deck profile once we get to that quickly. I'm just going kind of card by card to explain to people like a normal deck profile for the best of my ability from what I talked to them about, you know, from the information I got from them. And so 1 branded in white, you like to see it. It's just a great one of. You are still running the 1 branded in red, so it provides you still a lot of good crackback plays. This build has a lot of just like good recursion from the wanted engine, plus the branded sword and the retribution and the tragedy. So just adding on to that with white being your best follow-up turn on turn or play on turn 3 is great. 1 branded in red, you really only need 1 in 45 card build, especially without Pot of Prosperity. And then also you do have the 3 fusion deployment, and then 1 Triple Tactics Talents, the 3 Triple Tactics Thrust. I've actually seen some builds in the OCG not run Thrust in the Azamina Branded build, or even in Branded in general. I still think it's completely correct to run Brand or Thrust though. And then for the rest of the branded spells and traps, we do have the 1 branded in High Spirits, which is an interesting take because, of course, branded High Spirits has kind of been staple almost at 3 recently in branded, but I feel like at 45 it totally makes sense. You don't want to draw too many. Like if you draw 2 branded in white and like two wanted, you just like die. Like you want to, you know, ratios with branded is a really big balancing act, and so you have to make concessions where you can, and this is just kind of one of those things. You still run the 1, so you can, if you have an Albaz plus a Luber in hand, you can insulate yourself through Ash Blossom very easily still, and then just like other things like searching Mercurier in a pinch situation and catching your opponent off guard. Shout out to my man Sam's, like it actually does happen. And then 3 branded opening, very standard, and then 1 branded banishment. and then one branded sword, and then one branded retribution. The retribution super standard, of course, but then we have the branded sword and branded banishment, which aren't so much standard nowadays. I think sword has never been standard. I think banishment has been really a card in the past that a lot of people have used because it's great for fusing off problematic boards since it banishes the monsters and then also provides you with a body and revives a monster. So like it's a board breaker on some level and also an interruption and a great also other card to set besides branded and red or branded retribution in the end phase. So and the branded banishment makes a lot of sense in this kind of build, especially when you're running ad lib. Like branded banishment gets insane when you run ad lib because then you're just like looping Mirror Jade like 4 to 5 times possibly with Sanctifier. Obviously you do have the gimmick puppet in this build, but you also have the lad. It's just like there's a lot going on because you're layering your board on top of a wanted getting you to an Omni Negate or a board breaker that your opponent has to interact with. So this is just something I've been learning with playing Ryzeal. Ryzeal is a deck where you traditionally only get play Xyz monsters, but we saw Triff win with the Fiendsmith build, and those builds are doing better because you can go into other plays before going into your standard Ryzeal combo, and that's kind of what the Azamina cards allow you to do while providing you advantage through Wanted, and then also Azamina Sylvia giving you a great Omni Negate. Like, you know, shout out to Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, he's back, and it's, you know, it pays for itself essentially. So I would say it's a great, you know, engine. I'd recommend people trying it out, but I think banishment works alongside a lot of these techs. And then one branded sword. Yeah, branded sword's interesting. I mean, you do run the wanted, so you always want a good discard for Diabellstar. So running a sword makes a lot of sense. Also, just, you know, recurring your banish pieces since you're only running one Cartesia, one Quem. I think you do actually have to run branded sword because branded sword at the end of the day could be your second Cartesia worst case scenario, because a lot of the time you might have to make, you know, in a pinch fuse off with branded and red, and then you're gonna have to crack them back to either lock or set up a ad lib, and you know you'll have branded sword in the pocket to do that and still keeping up your card advantage while you're doing it. And then one fusion duplication, one called by, and then 3 forbidden droplet and 1 branded lost. I did forget the branded lost. Branded lost is actually the most broken branded card in branded Azamina because it's a starter, which they also talked about, so we will also get to that. But essentially the, you know, branded lost being a starter, since you can go, you know, in one of their hands essentially they had branded lost on field and no other starters in a grind game, but they had wanted in rotation with a witch, so they were able to go wanted into witch into getting a hallowed Azamina, and then they were able to make a Sylvia under branded lost, and then branded lost was able to search them as Spriggan's kit, which got them to a branded fusion because this counts as a fusion summon when hallowed Azamina fuse or basically summons an Azamina from the fusion from the extra deck. So it's very good in order to be, because that's the synergy with branded and Azamina. A lot of people are like, oh, it just provides you a random Omni Negate. It also triggers your branded lost, so it makes branded lost a starter, or branded lost an extender. All right, so now that we're through with the main deck, I'm gonna answer some chats, and then we're gonna get into the extra deck, into the side deck. Delhi G89, how's it going, my man? Why does Azamina branded make a C branded fusion more often? Well, this build is at 45, so if you're at a lower deck count, you're gonna probably see branded fusion more. I'm not sure if you mean something else though. But how's it going, Team Zig? Robin, is Azamina build better? I think the jury is out on that still, but we've been seeing a lot of duelists come pretty close to topping with branded Azamina last format, and now we see Austin, you know, Despaw taking it to a 5th place finish at 130 person regional, all with meta, you know, post crossover breakers with full power Ryzeal and Malice. So I think that's pretty impressive overall and a good sign for branded going forward, especially when Gimmick Puppet wasn't any sort of a deciding factor when this build is doing a lot more than just gimmick locking. You have the Light and Darkness Dragon Lord. You know, you have an Omni Negate on Sylvia. You have Mirror Jade plus Mercurier. Most decks can't play through that. On top of maybe even a random droplet that you drew. Yeah, no. So let's go into the extra deck. So for the Azamina cards, the one Ilia Sylvia is the Omni Negate and the Soul for the pop. And then we do have the branded cards in terms of 2 Mirror Jade, because 2 Mirror Jade is great. You are running the ad lib, so you're just like never not having Mirror Jade in rotation, 2 Albion, and then 1 Lubellion. And then you are also choosing to run, 1 Titanclad, 1 Renbrum, and then 1 Alba Lenatus, and then 1 Albion the Sanctifier Dragon, because you are running the Gimmick Puppet. But, you know, they also suggested you could also run the YuGiOh over this, so that is something to consider, a post-ban list. And then they do have the Guardian Chimera for the crackback plays. I do like that. 1 Light and Darkness Dragon Lord, and then 1 Grand Guignol, and then 1 Despian Quertus. So we'll talk about these right now. Both Mirror Jade and Quertus play phenomenally into Ryzeal, in my opinion. Yeah, Quertus puts pressure on them with the attack modulation and floating especially. And this is true with Malice in my experience too, so I feel like Quertus is definitely actually a great option in this format as well. So yeah, no, so and then they also mentioned, as for the Gimmick Puppet lock, I'm going to give YuGiOh a try, but to be honest, I think the deck can still do great without the lock, and instead focusing more on making Light and Darkness Dragon Lord. I found most decks scoop to it because their hand can't play through 3 negates plus Mirror Jade plus Mercurier. Yeah, exactly what I said before. And then, as you guys can see, there is no Borreload Furious Dragon, which is kind of crazy because, like, we've seen this card in, like, basically every branded list recently. However, I do have an explanation from the pilot here. I felt like the 1 Shrouded Dragon was enough, honestly. I always had access to it when I needed it. As for, or yeah, I reread that. As for the Borreload, I've never been a fan of that card. In my years of playing Branded, there's always been a better card for its slot, in my opinion. I know a lot of people would disagree with that. So, you know, they're humble in their opinion, but they have been a Branded pilot for years, so, you know, you can't take that away from them, and you can't take this top away from them. And I feel like Borreload at the end of the day has been an amazing card for us, but you got to think about it. In a format where stun is non-existent, do we need Borreload Furious Dragon anymore? Hot take. Hot take. Especially if you have the Wanted engine in rotation every turn to just cycle Hallowed and just make Soul to make your pop every turn. So you always have an access to a pop. That's what this Wanted engine does. It's kind of crazy. Like, your crack pack always involves going to your pop or just like another Omni Negate and then plus a draw. It's just like a really nutty engine that you're able to run in here that provides your grind game and just like a lot more, like way more of a dynamic kind of grind game. Bro, cooked with this list? Exactly. Super Polygo Burr? I mean, what back row decks are we talking about? Like, what, but like, actually, like, because what are the best decks right now? Ryzeal, Malice are S tier, kashtira, Fiendsmith / any Fiendsmith variant, and then, sorry, what else did I put as the other one? My mind is blanking. And Yubel, which, like, Yubel is good for Yubel, and I think that Guardian Chimera is there for. So it's just something, I mean, but they also have Light and Darkness Dragon Lord, which does the same thing. And, you know, that's what they're talking about. They've always felt like there's a better slot for that. Which, like, you know, they're also only running 1 Grand Guignol, which I did ask them about that, which they did not miss the 1 Grand Guignol or the 2 Grand Guignol. They felt like they didn't always need that since they were they ran both the Gimmick Puppet and Adlib, they had both in rotation at all times kind of thing, or at least 1 in rotation at all times, whether it's just having Branded Opening to get Adlib or just like your Cartesia line for Gimmick Puppet on top of your Omni Negate and then your like Mirror Jade and then Albaz lines. So it's really I really love this deck build. We're gonna test it out on stream after this deck profile. We're also at 95 viewers right now. I really do appreciate you guys. If you guys want to leave a like, we are gonna be I really do appreciate it. We're at 16 likes right now, 95 people in the chat. Appreciate it. Let me know in the chat what you guys think about this deck list down below. I hope I'm covering everything that I could possibly do on this. Also, Rinbrum is great going into Malice and Ryzeal because you can use it to bounce and negate like Detonator. So you guys have to think about that. Also, I think that this deck, I mean, they did play against Ryzeal, I believe, but like I feel like, you know, dealing with the Ryzeal field spell is definitely going to be something, but obviously you can actually do that with this card. So definitely a good thing. It threatens the Ryzeal field spell, gives you an in-engine pop, which is a very good thing for back row. So you know, the Borreload isn't exactly missing. And then for the side deck, we do have the 1D barrier to thrust, obviously, versus Ryzeal or like any other kind of rogue matchup. And then they are running 3 infinite impermanence. Imperm is great right now, in my opinion. Imperm on Duo Driver, Imperm on Whitebinder, on Malice is very good. And then obviously the Duo Driver on Ryzeal. Those are almost game-ending plays to both of those decks. So I feel like Imperm has never been better. And it's also a thrust target. So it's not a bad thing to run in Branded. And at 45 cards, just having an option to be able to play on your opponent's turn outside your Bystials, I think is pretty understandable. Also, just like you can use it going into your opponent's board, it is a trap too, so it plays around certain like BS floodgates. So it's a good thing. And then also Cosmic Cyclone. This is obviously Tenpai, Yubel, you know, when they're not running Borreload Furious, running 3 Cosmic Cyclone to make up for it definitely helps a lot, I think, and then also covers, you know, that meta that we just got out of that had a lot of continuous field spells with Centurion, Yubel, and Tenpai. So I feel like this could be an option that you could keep in your deck, obviously, because I asked if they'd make any changes, and they were quite happy with the deck outside of maybe just changing the puppet to an Ido or adding an extender over that. And then you're running the 1 Masquerade for time, and then also it's great against Malice. Like, a lot of the time Malice can't like out this without putting in like 5,600 life points. It's kind of crazy. And then 3 Super Poly. So this is another interesting choice because obviously we don't see Mud Dragon or Garura, and I did talk to them about this, so I do want to just let you guys know what they said about it. So I wanted to keep the side deck as tight as possible. So I just decided to run the 2 Azamina names that would give me the most impact. I think they meant the extra deck. Soul is good removal, but also I'd keep it going second to potentially make with Super Poly, as some end boards I've come across end on Silhouette Rabbit plus Desiree. So you can remove 3 cards off their field potentially with just a Super Poly and a discard, the 2 monsters and a card sent to the graveyard by Azamina Soul on summon. They cooked. They cooked. That's all I'm saying. They cooked. They cooked. So, yeah. So, Super Poly base, this Azamina Soul, this is one of your Super Poly targets. Because it cleans up the Rabbit Desiree board. And then also the rest of the... And then I asked them, did you miss Mud Dragon? Did you miss Mud Dragon or like something like a Garura? And they said, I felt they weren't necessary due to how generic the Albaz and Despian fusions are. I also viewed Super Poly as a tool to dodge Imperm, Valor, Desiree on a Luber. Wow, shout out to Yuri Diaz. Like, this is what we've been talking about with Super Poly, where, you know, you don't necessarily have to run those targets, especially if you're already thinking outside the box with, you know, Azamina. Told you all, bro, cooked with on this list. Dumb not to play Ultimate Slayer with the Xyz. What do you mean, E-God? In the side. I mean, I don't think that's dumb. You need to... I think it's a good card, but, like, you know, I don't think it's, like, you need to. I think it's definitely something we should test out, though, because I think Ultimate Slayer with Aggregator plus maybe, like, Bucephalus isn't a terrible option in Branded right now. Also, guys, join the Discord down below. I'm going to pin the message. Join the Discord. The invite's right there if you'd like to join the Discord. We have a great free community to be in. Full of duelists, great place to be in. And also... yeah, no, so let's go over the rest of this deck list. Also, 3 Solemn Scolding. So this card is an old card you might not be too familiar with. If this card is the only set card in your spell or trap card zone, when a monster would be summoned or a spell or trap card effect is activated or monster effect is activated, pay 3,000 and negate the summon or activation. And if you do, destroy that card. So you might be like, we set cards. However, if you chain Branded in red and then they go Dominus Impulse, and you chain Solemn Scolding, they die. You know? So, I think this is a great, actually, tech against things like Dominus Impulse. I also, because, like, a lot of the time you only have you'll only have, like, one set card. That'll be branded in red, and it will no longer be set by the time that Solemn Scolding is, like, live for it to be, like, relevant. So, this is a very cool tech I want to try out in branded, too. And then one Harpy's Feather Duster just for the back row decks. So I will now talk about the rest of the notes that I got from them from the interview, and then I will answer any questions on the deck list that you guys might have. So make sure to leave it down below. Also, I'm trying to think. If we get to 60 likes on the stream, guys. Let's see. What can we do if we get to 60 likes? If we get to 60 likes, we'll make a budget branded deck profile, okay? So make sure to leave a like on the stream if you haven't already. We will make this post format budget deck profile, a budget branded deck profile on stream. So we're currently at 17. I'm sure we can hit it though. We're at like 100 viewers right now. Y'all are insane. Shout out to the MetaGamesGX community. Love you guys. So, yeah, no, any questions on the deck list? I love this list. Honestly, I'd give it like a 10 out of 10. They cooked. You can't not. Like, this is the first topping American branded list. Like they cooked, and we got to take notes, you know? So, all right. So, let's read some chats now. We live again, baby. What's up, unexplored YuGiOh? Backroad, yeah. Wubo, what's up? Do you think Mulcharmy shift will happen from Fuwa to Peru? I mean, I think Fu is better than Purrely right now. I told y'all, yeah. Here for the Azamina branded variation. Yeah, we just went over it. Great list, honestly. I'm going to test it too right after we answer some questions. Gonna bring this into ranked here. We'll just have to switch out the puppet for something else or just not even run the puppet. I think Ultimate Slayer and Aggregator feels too targeted. It sometimes doesn't consider other decks. Yeah, I mean, I'll have to also run Lulu. But it's not terrible, right, if you run all the targets. Came from a second account just to like, says Christian Spasoff. Thanks for subscribing, Christian, on YouTube. Thank you. Not really EGOD, says EPA in the chat. All right, so, yeah, no, that was the list. I mean, I can show you guys what I mean, too, with the branded lost play. That they are... Here, let me read off the rest of the notes. They said, thank you, I'm just happy I was able to get a regional top with my favorite deck, and it feels so much more special because of that. So yeah, definitely very wholesome. Also, the siding package, my plan was the package, if I go second, I could side out the 6 cards, the Witch, the 3 Wanted, and the 2 Azamina cards, and Sylvia, and replace them with Board Breakers and back row removal and Masquerade. So, and Masquerade's a super poly target. You guys gotta remember that. Quertus and super poly and Masquerade are both super poly targets. Also, the Abolinatus for just like random dragon decks. I can understand when Centurion was in the top 8, so I feel like it might have came up for them.